Om Sarvadharmasthapagastam Sarvadharmaswarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Ayate Namaha. We are studying here Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master, second part, as the spiritual aspirant or struggler or sadhak, and we are in the 10th chapter. In the 8th chapter, all the remaining things about the first 4 years were told. And we have met with the absolute absorption in sadhana and the results thereof, and practicing something externally also regarding all principles of sadhana. And then people thought he has become insane, so he was taken to his house in Kamarpukur, and he assumed quite a natural behavior after some time, because he was seeing mother continuously, and his mother and brother thought that now that he has come to almost normal, he should be married so that his mind comes toward the worldly affairs. And when they could not find a bride, he himself told them, look at Ramchandra's house in Gijarambati. And the marriage was finalized, and then they had borrowed some ornaments from the Lahas to put on the bride's body. They had to be returned. Thakur carefully removed them, and mother asked what about them, and then her uncle took her away. Master said that they cannot cancel the marriage now. And then he came back. And when he came back, then after 1.5 years, when he came back, he immersed himself in sadhana once more and forgot everything about the world. And then that is what we are studying. Now, 10th chapter, the coming of the Bhairavi Brahmani. After this, Thakur, 2 things will happen. Bhairavi will tell them that this is incarnation, no disease. And under Bhairavi's guidance, he will do all the Tantra sadhanas. Before that, another important event happens, because for Tantra sadhana, so much help will be required from the worldly point of view. Spiritual help Bhairavi will do, but financially and freedom to behave as he likes, all these were provided by Mathur Babu. So Mathur was already attracted to Thakur. He had seen Shiva and Kali in Thakur. But he was the second in command in the affairs of the temple. And Rani passed away, and Mathur became the full in charge of the temple and its activities, and thus he could serve Thakur. So according to the need of Thakur, things are happening in the outside world. So we like to read this 10th chapter from the beginning again. The master, after his marriage, returned from Kamarpukur to Dakshineshwar. After this, in 1861, two important events took place which exercised a profound influence on his life. This is why it is necessary to describe them here. Severe illness of Rani Rasmani. Rani Rasmani had an attack of dysentery shortly after the master's arrival at Dakshineshwar. Some of us were told by him that one day the Rani had a sudden fall, which gave rise to fever, pain in the body, indigestion, and other complications, gradually leading to dysentery, which was a fatal disease in those days. The disease by degrees took a fatal turn. Rani's execution of a Devottara deed of the Dinajpur properties and her death. Dinajpur is in East Bengal. The Rani of innumerable noble qualities had consecrated the Kali temple on Thursday, May 31, 1855, and for the perpetual continuation of the service of the deities, she had purchased on August 29 of the same year 3 estates in the district of Dinajpur for 226,000 rupees. 2,26,000 rupees. Although she had resolved in her mind to make an endowment of the property, she had not so far executed a deed of endowment formally. That means being used for that purpose, but formally it was not legally formally made. Seeing that the hour of death was far approaching, she became very anxious to do it. Of the 4 daughters of the Rani, the second and the third, Kumari and Karunamai respectively, had died before the consecration of the Kali temple. Therefore, her 2 other daughters, the eldest Padmamani and the youngest Jagadamba, were present at her sick bed. We are told that when the draft of the deed of endowment of the Kali temple written according to the Rani's desire came, she asked her 2 daughters to sign it, giving their assent to the terms of the deed, thereby precluding all possibilities of future quarrels among her descendants regarding the object of the deed. Jagdamba signed that bond, but Padmamani did not, in spite of the repeated request of the Rani at the time of her death. But Padmamani did not, in spite of the repeated request of the Rani at the time of her death. Therefore, the Rani had no peace on her deathbed. As there was no other alternative left, the Rani signed the deed of endowment herself on February 18, 1861, thinking the Divine Mother will be done, and passed away to the sphere of the Devi the following night. Now, in this paragraph, 2 footnotes are mentioned. One is about the purchase of the property, and the second is about the just now I lost it. Oh, just now it skipped us. Okay. Where is it? Okay, let us read the footnotes. Plaintiff in High Court, suit number 308 of 1872, Padmamani Dasi versus Jagdamba Dasi, recite the following from the deed of endowment executed by Rani Rasmani according to my late husband's desire. I, on the 18th of Jeshta 1262 BS, 31st May 1855, established and consecrated the Thakurs, and for purpose of carrying on the seva, purchased 3 lots of zamindaris in district Dinajpur on 14th Bhadra 1262 BS, Bengali Sun, 29th August 1855 for rupees 2,26,000. The deed of endowment dated 18 February 1861 was executed by Rani Rasmani. She acknowledged her execution of the same before J. F. Watkins, Solicitor, Calcutta. This dedication was accepted as valid by all parties in Alipur suit number 47 of 1867, Jadunath Chaudhary versus Padmani, and in High Court suit number 308 of 1872, Padmani versus Jagdamba, and also when that suit number 308 was revived after contest on 19 July 1888. Legal matters, but he has quoted to show the full objectivity of what he is writing. Now I come to the next paragraph. The Rani's vision at the time of passing away. The master said, so this is now from Thakur's words. The master said that Rani Rasmani came to her house on the Adi Ganga at Kalighat a few days before she passed away. Ganga had changed her course. So the old course of Ganga is called Adi Ganga. And the famous Kalighat, the Kali temple, which is one of the 50 or 52 Pitha, Shakti Pitha, is there on the Adi Ganga. And near there, they had their ancestral house. Though we know that they were staying in Jan Bazar, but the old house was there. And because it was near the Ganga, the Rasmani had come there to death, for death. Few days before she passed away. Immediately before her passing away, she saw many lamps lighted before her and exclaimed suddenly, "Do move away all these, I relish them no more. My mother, the mother of the universe, is come now. All quarters have become illumined by the effulgence of her holy person." So her vision. A little later, "Mother, art thou come? But Padma has not affixed her signature. What will happen, mother?" Saying so, the virtuous Rani assumed a calm and tranquil mood. That means whatever mother wills will happen. And immediately slept on the mother's lap. Slept on the mother's lap, the sleep that knows no waking. Her passing away has been described in this way. She had already been brought to the sands of the Ganga, and the loud howling of jackals was being heard on all sides nearby. So, that is the custom, that the person is brought near Ganga, and so that when the actual passing away time will come, the body can be inserted in the Ganga. So, that is the custom, and she had brought there. And the howling of jackals. Now this Kali, the mother, is accompanied by jackals always. So howling of the jackals means coming of the mother. And that is a auspicious sign at the time of Rani's death. What the Rani apprehended on her deathbed is about to happen during Saradananda's time. From the great disagreement and the subsequent quarrel and litigation that have been going on among the sons of the Rani's daughters over the endowed temple property, we see clearly why the far-sighted Rani was so apprehensive at the time of her death. regarding the arrangement for the service of the Devi, which was her very life, and why she felt the anguish from that cause far more acutely than the pain due to the fatal disease, because her mind was completely in tally. And she said, Mother, what will happen? Padma is not signed. It is seen in the official documents that the temple property is now mortgaged for a little less than 1 lakh of rupees. For defraying the heavy expenses of its litigation. Who can say whether the unique, praiseworthy act of the Rani connected with the divine dedication will end sometime as the result of these quarrels as a mere memory and be obliterated altogether? But that has not happened. The government has appointed a receiver, and the arrangements, prasad and everything is going on wonderfully well. So, the property or everything did not go in vain. The temple is very much living, and if you go and see the crowd, and especially on Sundays, you will be wonderstruck. And so, what Saradananda Swamiji apprehended has not happened. Footnote says debt due to mortgage by the estate is rupees 50,000, interest payable quarterly is rupees 876, Anna's Pies 00. Cost of the referee already stated amount to rupees 20,000 as yet untaxed. So that is the details during Saradanji's time, but due to all this, government appointed a receiver and the arrangement is fully going on. Improvement in the worldly affairs of Mathur Babu. For that, this was described. Rani is described as being the associate of the Divine Mother herself. And so we see all these things. But the net result in Thakur's life is Mathur's assuming all powers. Improvement in the worldly affairs of Mathur Babu and his arrangement about the divine service in the temple. Since the foundation of the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar, Mathuranath Vishwas, the youngest son-in-law of the Rani, rose to be a right-handed man in managing the estate. From the very day the Kali temple was consecrated, he, having studied the financial condition of the endowment, made arrangements about all matters regarding the temple service according to the Rani's desire. As the purifying influence of the life of Sri Ramakrishna had gained a complete hold over the mind of Mathur sometime previously, the service of the mother at Dakshineshwar did not evidently slacken in any department after the Rani's death, because Thakur wanted it and Mathur was fully dedicated to that. The influence and prosperity of Mathur were for helping the master. So that is the divine ordinance. We have told the reader many times of the unique relation of Mathur with the master in the Guru Bhav. Therefore, it is needless to mention it again. Suffice it to say that the sudden death of the Rani and Mathur's wielding of the sole authority in the management of the temple affairs gave the latter a great opportunity of helping the master in his tantric sadhanas, extending over a long time. Who can say whether the authority of Mathur over the management of the property was not brought about by the will of the Divine Mother for helping her son, the master? For we find that from that time on till his death, Mathur's death, Mathur engaged himself wholeheartedly in the service of the master. To have that firm faith in one person for more than 11 long years and to spend one's life in an exalted spiritual mood are possible by the grace of God alone. One is convinced of the great good fortune of Mathur from the fact that he was daily growing in his faith in the Master. Instead of giving free rein to passions and losing his head on the acquisition of almost the sole mastery over the vast property of the Rani. So, if money comes more, it will spoil the head ordinarily. We have seen this in many cases. But before that, because the holiness, the devotion to Thakur had fully increased, so instead of money being an hindrance, money became helpful to Mathur to serve the Thakur. That is the whole thing. The idea of Mathur and others about the Master. So we have seen that others could not understand. Mathur only understood to some extent. So far, none but the sadhakas of God, and that we have seen, Vaishnava Charan and other sadhakas, they could understand Thakur. So far, none but the sadhakas of God could form any idea about the high spiritual state of the Master, because it was such extraordinary that ordinary people could not understand it. The generality of people thought he was demented, mental disease. For he, they said, did not at all distinguish what was good for him from what was evil. Why they think he is mad? Because he could not look to his selfish interest. What is good for him in their eyes and bad for him, he cannot distinguish. That is how the worldly people judge everything. Like them, he is not doing. First thing. Secondly, was not attracted by objects of enjoyment. So that is another thing. People live their whole life being attracted by objects of enjoyment, and Thakur is not at all attracted. Never tried to do harm to anybody. So out of selfishness, enjoyment, people harm others. Thakur is not doing that, and was living contented within himself, and he did not depend upon anybody for his joy. Joy is coming from himself inside. All the needs and all that God takes care. He is contented inside because no attraction outside. And spent his days repeating sometimes Hari, sometimes Rama, and sometimes Kali. We have seen in that 4 years, he had practiced that Rama child and Hari Das, all that. They also saw that he could not at all improve his worldly condition, nor would ever be able to do so, even though he was a favorite of the Rani and Mathura. So you gain favor of rich people, one improves worldly. All this, in contrast, are being described. The persons whose favor was enough to make many people improve their fortunes in every respect. But one thing they all understood, namely that although this madman was hopelessly good for nothing, still his bright eyes, his extraordinary deportment, his sweet voice, his graceful speech, and wonderful presence of mind had such an attraction and charm for all. God's presence, cannot be explained in any other way than God. Charm for all, that he could unhesitatingly approach and endear himself to even those rich and respectable persons before whom others would not venture to appear. So, though he did not derive any physical benefits from them, but he became dearer and dearer to them due to his spiritual qualities. So all this described is not what attracted people, but they saw that he attracts Rani Rasmani and Madhuru. Although the people in general and the officers of the Kali temple in particular formed such a queer idea of the master, Mathur had quite a different view of him. Hriday told us that Mathur said the reason why he looks like a madman is that he had had the grace of the mother of all. And we have seen Mathur and Rani tested him in so many ways, and Mathur saw Shiva and Kali in him. So Mathur had more and more faith in him. The arrival of the Brahmani at Dakshineshwar. Now the second event. Shortly after the passing away of the Rani, there came to pass another important event in the master's life. There was a beautiful flower garden on the spacious embankment of the Ganga to the west of the Kali temple. Between Kali temple and Ganga, there is a garden. Full of various kinds of flowers. The trees and creepers in the garden, well taken care of, spread a wonderful beauty and filled the quarters with the fragrance of the flowers. Though the master did not perform the worship of the Divine Mother at that time, he used to pluck flowers daily in that garden, make garlands with them, and decorate her with his own hands. So, whatever possible he was doing, the formal worship he was not doing. Even today, there exists in the middle of the garden a wide flight of steps leading from the Ganga to the temple, Chandni Ghat it is called, through a beautiful open portico, that is Chandni, and a brick built ghat, steps, for the use of women at the northern end of the embankment. Oh, so, this is not the Chandni Ghat, then, huh? This is where mother used to take her, northern side. What is called Bakul Talaghat. Yes. It is mentioned clearly. Yes. It comes at the end of the para. My mistake. North of the temple, that ghat and so many flowers around is Bakul Tala Ghat. Bakul, name of the flowers, and just below the foot of the tree is that ghat, so it is called Bakul Tala Ghat. After, when you come little south, then is the main ghat called Chandni Ghat. And this is open portico. Chandni has a cover. And a brick built ghat for the use of women. So that is generally where women take bath, Holy Mother including. And this Chandni is for regular public. For the use of women at the northern end of the embankment and in Nahabat to the north of the Kali temple. Nahabat means where the Sanai, what we know as the windpipe, that is played. And drums are beaten. So music room is called Nahabat. People used to call that ghat the Bakul Ghat on account of a big spreading Bakul tree close to it. They have not translated this Bakul in English. One day the master was plucking flowers in the garden. These all strange things we shall now read, very strange in appearance, but they happened. One minute, please. We shall find out. He says sweet smelling white flower. Okay, okay, let it be. The technical name is given Mimusops elengi. Okay. Marat's name is Bakul itself. Bakulichi Pule. One day the master was plucking flowers in that garden when a boat came to the Bakul Ghat and anchored. A beautiful lady in the dress of a Bhairavi, Tantric Sannyasini, is called Bhairavi, with ochre-colored cloth on and with her hair let loose, got down with a bundle of books in her hand and proceeded toward the portico on the wide ghat to the south. Portico, wide ghat to the south, that is Chandni Ghat. Although the Bhairavi was past her youth, nobody could take her to be advanced in age because youthful grace and beauty still lingered on her person. We were told by the master himself that the Bhairavi was then almost 40. We cannot say how far the master foresaw at first sight his close future relation with her. We cannot say, but it is true that he felt that great attraction towards her, which people feel when they see one whose life is bound up with their own. So attraction, not physical, huh? Spiritual attraction. For as soon as the master saw the Bhairavi from a distance, he returned to his room, called Hriday and asked him to fetch that sannyasini. Hriday hesitated and said, "The lady is a stranger. Why should she come at all?" The master said, "Request her in my name and she will come readily." So he could understand that, though exactly what will happen he may not be knowing, but felt that a divinely arranged attraction. Hriday said that he felt not a little surprised to see the eagerness of the master to speak with a lady who was entirely unknown to him, for he had never before seen him acting thus. However, Hriday knew that he would not but obey his mad uncle. So he went to the portico, saw the Bhairavi sitting there, and said to her that his maternal uncle, who was a devotee of God, this much on the introduction, requested her to meet him. Hriday was still further amazed when he saw the Bhairavi unhesitatingly standing up to accompany him without putting any question to him, because she was also divinely ordained. When the what the Bhairavi said to the master when she saw him first. When the Bhairavi came to the master's room and saw him, so when she had landed, she had not seen him. Master had seen him. Master went to his room and called her. And she came and then she saw him. When the Bhairavi came to the master's room and saw him, she became overwhelmed with delight and astonishment, shed tears of joy and said, "Ah, my child, you are here. I knew you were living somewhere on the bank of the Ganga, and I have been searching for you ever so long. At long last, I have met you now." So she could recognize him. We will see what she recognized. The master said to her, "How could you know of me, mother?" The Bhairavi answered, "I knew long ago by the grace of the Universal Mother that I would have to meet three of you. I have already met two in Eastern Bengal, and today I met you here." Eastern Bengal, Bangladesh. And she also seems to be from Bangladesh. Now, due to that, those two will meet the master and meet fulfillment in their life that we are read during the Guru Bhav. Now here, Sadhak Bhav, same, let us remember, same time period, looked at from two different points. God appearing as man is ideal guru and ideal sadhak. So that ideal sadhak we are studying now, though the time period is the same, when he became guru to his own gurus also. The first conversation between the master and the Bhairavi. The master then sat beside the Bhairavi and like a child, describing everything delightedly and with an open heart to its mother. Just like child talking to the mother, Thakur sat near her and started talking about all his experiences. Went on narrating his extraordinary visions, the loss of his consciousness of the external world while talking on God, the burning sensation in his body, his sleeplessness, and other peculiar bodily changes, because of which he was taken to be mad. He repeatedly asked her, Mother, what are these things that happened to me? Have I actually become mad? Have I been seized with a failed disease for calling on Mother wholeheartedly? Listening to these words of the Master, she, like a mother, became now excited, now delighted, and with her heart melting with compassion, consoled him, saying over and over again, Who calls you mad, my child? It is not madness. You are in the state of Mahabha. The whole difference is that she knew the scriptures and she could judge him by the scriptures and her sadhana. It is not madness, you are in the state of Mahabha. Mahabha, that is different relations with God. All put together is called Mahabha. And that is what has happened in you. And that is why all these things are happening to you. Is it given to ordinary people to understand the state you are in? Because they have not studied the scriptures and they have not done sadhana. In their ignorance, they say what they say. All this happened to Sri Radharani and to Sri Chaitanya, the great Lord. All these things are recorded in the devotional scriptures. So, only in these two people up till now, and third, Sri Ramakrishna. Not even Chaitanya's disciples. All these things are recorded in the devotional scriptures. I have got these books with me. I will read them out to you and prove that these states come on those who truly called on God in the past and do so at the present time too. Called on God, that is Radharani and Chaitanya, and now in Thakur. Hriday was simply flabbergasted to see the Bhairavi Brahmani and his uncle behave and converse with each other like close relatives, long familiar. So Hriday was listening to all that. When afterward the master found that the day was far advanced, he gave the Bhairavi Brahmani for her breakfast. Day is advanced because early morning was plucking flowers. So breakfast time. He gave the Bhairavi Brahmani for her breakfast, fruits, roots, butter, candy, etc., all prasad of the Devi, and knowing that the Brahmani, inspired by spiritual motherly love towards him, would not take anything whatever without first feeding him. He understood that. He first partook a little of all those things. After paying her obeisance to the deities and having her breakfast. So, Brahmani went around, had saluted the temples, and then took that breakfast. And having her breakfast, she took from the temple store some flour, rice, etc. as bhiksha in order to offer cooked food to the stone symbol of Raghuveer hung from her neck and engaged herself in cooking under the Panchavati. So breakfast she has accepted, main lunch she will cook, and she had a Raghuveer Shila tied in her neck, and that was her ishtam. So she would offer that cooked food to that and then eat. That was her custom. The Bhairavi had an extraordinary vision under the Panchavati. So Panchavati is the proper place for cooking. She had gone there to cook. Afterwards, when the cooking was finished, she placed food, drink, etc. before Raghuveer. And drink is paniya, don't equate to drink mean wine. Before Raghuveer and offered them to him. Then she, while thinking on her chosen ideal, sank into deep meditation and had an extraordinary vision and entered into deep samadhi. From both her eyes flowed profuse tears of love, and she completely lost her consciousness of the world. Now, this is inside. Outside, what is happening? Feeling in his heart of hearts irresistibly attracted to the Panchavati at that time, the master came there in a state of ecstasy. And not knowing clearly what he was doing, started like one hypnotized, eating the food offered by the Brahmani to her chosen ideal. The Brahmani regained her normal consciousness after some time and opened her eyes to see that charming behavior of the master, who was then in Bhav Samadhi. So not in ordinary consciousness, and was devoid of consciousness of the world. Finding all this correspond to her vision. So in her vision, she had seen Thakur is an incarnation and the offered food is offered to him and he is eating that. Finding all this correspond to her vision, she was filled with bliss and astonishment. Because strange, the hair of her body standing on end, coming down to normal consciousness, master. The master felt uneasy at what he had done and said to the Brahmani, "Who knows, mother, why I lose control over myself and happen to do such thing?" The Brahmani then reassured him like a mother and said, "You have done very well, my child. It is not you who have done this, but the one who is within you has done it as he does always." Now, two things we see here. Two things. She understands Thakur is her Ishtam, and yet she feels motherly love for him. And that is how she could help him. If all the time he was God, she could not have helped him for sadhana. And he was only child, then she would not have gone with all energy to help him. So, two things arise in her mind. He is my Ishtam and he is my child, and I have to help him in his sadhana. And that is the endearing term about Raghuveer. What? You have done very well, my child. It is not you who have done this, but the one who is within you has done it, as he does always, not in us. From what I saw during my meditation, I have come to the certain conclusion as to who has done it, and I feel I need not perform ceremonial worship anymore. My worship at long last has answered its purpose. A living person has eaten that. So that image and invoking God in that is not necessary now. Saying so, the Brahmani ate without the least hesitation as prasad of the deity, the remains of the food taken by the master. And having obtained the permanent living vision of Raghuveer in the body and mind of the master, she immersed with care the stone symbol of Raghuveer, worshipped so endearingly by her for such a long time in the waters of the Ganga. Made it flow there, shedding tears of love and joy in a spiritual semi-conscious state. So, one part of her life fulfilled. The discussion on the Shastras under the Panchavati. Now the discussion on the Shastras started. All this is totally strange, out of this world, but fact happening. That is the beauty. The conversation and the puja and Thakur eating that and she recognizing that and yet feeling that he is her child, these are all out of this world things. The affection And attraction at first sight between the master and the Brahmani increased day by day. So now he's talking of some days, with her heart overcome by spiritual maternal affection. Spiritual maternal affection. Mother spiritually. The sannyasini stayed on that Dakshineshwar. Neither of the two was conscious of how time slipped away. Day after day in their meeting each other and having spiritual conversation under the Panchavati. The master told the Brahmani frankly all the mysteries regarding spiritual visions and states. Visions and as the result, the state in which the mind lives. Now and then putting various questions to her. And the Bhairavi Brahmani solved all those problems with the help of books on Tantra. Sometimes again she would read verses from the Chaitanya Bhagavad. So she was expert in two types of sadhana, the Tantra and the Chaitanya's Vaishnavism. She would read verses from the Chaitanya Bhagavata, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and other devotional books showing what signs were produced by the strong surge of the divine love in the bodies and minds of incarnations of God. And in this way dispelled the doubts of the master. Thus there flowed a current of divine bliss under the Panchavati day after day. The reason why the Bhairavi came to live at the Devamandal Ghat. 6 or 7 days passed this way. Day after day means 6 or 7 days. When it became evident to the keen intelligence of the master that it did not look well to keep the Brahmani there, though there was nothing really blamable in it, but people won't understand. They take man talking to a woman or close relation with them always with a bad eye. So that is not proper. Though there was nothing really blamable in it. Unable to understand their holy relationship, worldly men given to lust and gold might start talking all about the character of the pure lady. As soon as the thought crossed his mind, 7 days they were lost everything, but then, as soon as the thought crossed his mind, he gave a hint about it to the Brahmani. The Brahmani also felt the reasonableness of the point and left the Kali temple, deciding to live somewhere near and to come daily for some time to see the master, not staying with him. To the north of the temple in the village of Dakshineshwar, on the Ganga, is situated the Devamandal Ghat. Here the Brahmani went and dwelt. Footnote, Hriday said, the master himself advised the Brahmani to live at the Devamandal Ghat. He sent her to the Mandal's place, Mandal the surname of a family. As soon as she went there, she was received respectfully by the virtuous wife of the late Navin Chandran Niyogi. So we are meeting with two surnames. So Mandal seems to be a caste name, that means a group, and out of this the particular surname is Niyogi. Virtuous wife of the late Navin Chandra Niyogi. This pious lady not only allowed her to live in the room at the ghat as long as she liked, but also gave her a bed sheet, a mound of rice, pulses, ghee, and other articles of food. So provisions arranged divinely. So the Brahmani went and dwelt. Thakur himself told her and she went. She roamed, this all told by Hridaya, that reception and arrangement. She roamed everywhere in the village and became dear to the ladies there by virtue of her noble qualities. That is the meaning of roamed. Therefore, she had no inconvenience whatever about her board and lodge and was not prevented from meeting the master daily out of any fear of public scandal. She used to visit the Kali temple every day for some time and have conversation with him as before. She gathered by begging various kinds of food from the women of the village, other than what that lady had given her, who became acquainted with her, brought them to the temple and gave them to the master to eat. Oh, this is not about cooked food which she cooked. Cooked food she baked and gave it to the master. How the Bhairavi came to have the conviction that the master was an incarnation of God. Her vision and her knowledge of the Shastras. When she heard of the spiritual experiences, visions and states of the master, experiences, visions and states. The Brahmani gained the firm conviction that all those things were produced by his extraordinary love of God. When she saw that he felt supreme bliss during the singing of the Lord's glory and often lost consciousness in Bhav Samadhi during conversation on God, she became certain that he was not an ordinary sadhak. Because singing and conversation will produce experience in her, in him. When she saw all this, she was reminded time and again of the hints spread over the pages of the Chaitanya Charitamrit, the Chaitanya Bhagavat and other books of Bengal Vaishnavism. Bengal Vaishnavism, Ramanuja Vaishnavism is little different in customs in South. About the fact that Chaitanya, the great Lord, would again assume a body and come down on earth for the deliverance of men. The Brahmani, the great scholar that she was, compared minutely the conduct and behavior of the master with those of Chaitanya recorded in those books and found a great similarity between them. She found manifested in the master, as in Chaitanya, the power of awakening spirituality in others by touch during Bhav Samadhi. Again, garlands, sandal paste, etc., recorded to have cured the constant burning sensation in the body of Chaitanya, suffering from the pangs of separation from God, were applied by her to the master also, for the same purpose and with the same effect. All that were read already in the Gurva. Therefore, the memory of the divine vision regarding Sri Ramakrishna, which the Brahmani had under the Panchavati on the first day of her arrival, as well as the few facts just mentioned above, deeply convinced her that both Chaitanya and Nityananda had come again in the present age and dwelt in the Master's body and mind, with a view to disseminating love of God for the deliverance of Jiva in a different style. While going to the village of Shior, the master who had already told the reader saw two boys of tender age come out of his body. The Brahmani now heard of that vision from the master himself and became all the more convinced of her own conclusion regarding him and said, Chaitanya is manifesting this type in the sheath of Nityananda. Body Nityananda inside Chaitanya. The Sannyasini Brahmani did not expect any favor from anybody in the world. Sannyasini. So she was not afraid of being condemned or ridiculed if her own conclusion regarding Sri Ramakrishna was spoken out by others. She had such conviction and she did not care for others. She did not want anything from others. So she did not care. It is not any arrogance or egoism. Conviction in her own state, conviction about her ideas makes it appear like that she does not care for anybody. Therefore, when asked about it, she had no hesitation in fully expressing her view first to the master and Hriday and then to all others. One day at this time, the master, we were told, sat on the Panchavati with Mathur and Hriday. In the course of conversation, the master told Mathur about the Brahmani's faith regarding himself and said, she says the signs that were manifest in the incarnations of God are there in this body and mind. She has read many scriptures and has also many books with her. That means she can show those. When Mathur heard this, he laughed out and said, Father, let her say whatever she likes. The incarnations of God cannot be more than 10. That's the prevailing faith of the Hindus, which binds them not to understand other incarnations, including Chaitanya. He is not included in the 10. Therefore, how can her words be true? But it is true that the Mother Kali has bestowed her grace on you. He has seen Shiva and Kali and all that. So he takes that as the gods are bestowing grace on him. They were talking thus when they saw a sannyasini coming toward them. Mathur asked the master, is it she? The master replied, yes. They saw that she had procured a plateful of sweets from somewhere and in a state of rare inwardness, oblivious, so to say, to the outside world, was coming toward them inspired by the same mood which prompted Yashoda, the wife of Nanda, to proceed with affection oozing out of her heart to feed Gopala at Vrindavan. So, word is forgotten. She has got the spirit of Yashoda and Thakur is Krishna and she is coming to feed him. When she approached them, she saw Mathur Babu and carefully restrained herself and handed over the plate to Hriday to be given to the master to eat from. So did not approach the master directly because Mathur may not understand that. But Thakur is not going to leave it like that. Pointing to Mathur, the master then said to her mother, I was telling him what you said about me, to which he replied that the incarnation of God could not be more than 10. Mathur saluted the sannyasini in the meantime because sannyasini and admitted that he had actually raised the objection. The Brahmani gave her blessings to him and replied, why does not the Bhagavata, not Chaitanya Bhagavata, that is the fun. From where this 10 avatars have come and the whole Hindu Samaj has been influenced by that. But the books from which we understand incarnation, Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Gita states only the principle, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati, I come. And Bhagavatam states 24 avatars. And after that it says avatara hi asankheya. So that Bhairavi has read. Many people read that but do not pay attention to that. They still stay about the 10 incarnations, even after reading Bhagavad. Why does not the Bhagavata speak at first of 24 principal incarnations, and afterwards of innumerable ones? Beside the coming again of the great Lord Sri Chaitanya, so Chaitanya is included in the Chaitanya has come again. But the coming again of the great Lord Chaitanya is distinctly mentioned in the Vaishnava books, and the great similarity of the principal characteristics is found to exist between him and Sri Chaitanya. The Brahmani thus supported her own position and said that if a good scholar of the Bhagavata and books of the Bengal Vaishnava teachers be consulted, he could not but admit the truth of what she said. She was ready, she said, to support her position in the presence of a scholar. Not knowing what he should say, Mathur remained silent because that was all truth and new to him. The reason why Pandit Vaishnav Charan came to Dakshineshwar. We read all these things in the Gurva, but now Thakur's sadhana is going on and it is not a disease. That is the main point. All people began small of the Kali temple came gradually to know of the extraordinary conviction of the Brahmani regarding the master. This caused a great flutter among them. We have recorded elsewhere the result of this sensation in detail, again in that Guru. Therefore, it will suffice here to mention that although the Brahmani raised the master suddenly to the position of God and paid him the reverence due to God in the presence of all, he remained the same simple child of the Divine Mother. So, he is incarnation. If you would not, he would have been filled with pride. Untouched by egotism and the resulting changes. But he wanted to know these opinions of persons well versed in the Shastra. Bhairavi has said that on the Brahmani's conclusion and insisted like a boy that Mathur should invite the Pandits to Dakshineshwar. As a result of this request, Pandit Vaishnav Charan came to the Kali temple. We have described elsewhere how the Brahmani, when she met Vaishnav Charan, not only upheld her own position, but also brought him round to hers. He also was convinced. So, that is the 10th chapter. Now, the purpose of Bhairavi's coming is Thakur's practicing tantric sadhana. That we shall see tomorrow in the next chapter. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakasvam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaaya Te Namaha Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.